I figure what I'm going to do, my goal. First of all, I'm Angus, right? I also go by Angus by design. And I'm just getting set up. I'm going to do a little reading and a little reflection practice. I started yesterday. I started the book, the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners, and it's a guide to living and dying. It's by Lama Lhanang Rinpoche and Mordy Levine. And so in this practice today, my goal is to read chapter 2 and kind of reflect on it. And then I really like, I use it as a wellness tool. I call it, well, I don't call it this, but it's called the Spirit Animal Oracle, and it's by a person named Collette Baron-Reid, who does a lot of books, writes a lot of books around, sort of positive journaling and reflection and meditation and stuff like this. And I love it because it's like each card is a different animal that reflects, and then the messages behind it kind of are they're sort of tied into the characteristics of the animal, I guess. So welcome. So I'll get started. It is a practice that I do, so I'll just introduce myself as to kind of what my skills are, I guess, just for informational purposes. But I've been a Reiki master, third degree Reiki master since 2007. And if you're new to Reiki, it basically just means universal life energy. So Dr. Mikao Usui was an academic type, pretty smart fella, and he went on a spiritual journey, and then he essentially developed Reiki in order to teach his students. But it's basically the idea of making sort of like a mind-body connection, and the way that we can connect, or that we connect to things through our emotions or through our sensed feelings. So, and then, but that's also just a personal practice. So Reiki is also a thing that like anybody can do it. Everybody has the gift, I guess. It's because it's just universal life energy type thing, that thing that just makes everything alive, I guess. And so that's pretty much that practice. So just to warn everybody, like, I am a practitioner, I'm a mentor, I do a bunch of things. The other thing that I base everything on, just so you know, is I'm certified. Like, if you ever see my descriptions anywhere, or something that I post and it has a bunch of acronyms after it, I'm not a formally educated person, so I wasn't able to finish high school, but I got my general education diploma back when I was in my 20s. And so, but I have all these certifications, but they're in things like wellness recovery action planning. So like this book, for example, Family Wrap. The reason why I love stuff like that is because it was developed by peers. It was developed by people like us, people who are living real life, but even going through bigger challenges. And so I just love, like, this is a tool that continues to grow. It's something that has helped individuals, that's helped organizations. So you'll see that certification. I also am a practitioner, and I have some sort of like clinical certifications around mental health first aid, but I like to focus on emotional CPR, which essentially just stands for connecting. The P is empowering, so it's a little, starts with E technically, but it's empowerment, and then revitalization. So, but ECPR was developed by, again, peers, people with lived experience, and it really is just about, again, connecting into how we feel and connecting to how we can connect to energy and how it can affect us and that sort of thing. So again, long description, but I'm going to read from the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners, A Guide to Living and Dying. This was a book that I had borrowed from the library and then ended up paying some fines, and so now I'm the proud owner. But with my own lived experience, like, I find it challenging to read books. So even though I can read, I live with, a brain and a moral injury, and some, just circumstances that make it a challenge to sit down or to focus sometimes. So just in December, I started a practice where I read like a chapter a day. So this is really technically, I'm sneaking and getting myself to do my practice. So again, the book is the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. It's a guide to living and dying, by Lama Rinpoche and Mordy Levine. And yesterday I read chapter 1, which was karma, and how we live is how we die. So if you want to see that video, I think it's still posted here, but I also have it posted on YouTube. So, and oh, awesome. And then so today's chapter is what dies and what gets reborn. So and I'll just read the quotes in the beginning and the dedication, because I think it's a great practice. And then after I read the chapter, I'll pull a card and we'll see if that ties in, okay? So the quote is, "The past is history, the future is mystery, and the present moment is a gift." And that's Lama Lhanang Rinpoche. And the dedication of this book: may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And may all beings rejoice in the well-being of others. May all beings live in peace, free from greed and hatred. And that's the 4 measurables. So again, I got this book from the library, but it's also, I noticed it is available in a lot of places online, or I'm sure in a store near you. So chapter 2, and just welcome to everybody. What dies and what gets reborn? Does our body die? Clearly. What about our brain? That clearly dies too. What about our personality, our soul, our spirit, our identity, our sense of self? Before we talk about death and rebirth, we need to know what is dying. And for those who believe in rebirth, what is getting reborn? The self. Let's start by examining this thing we call the self. Here is a working definition of the self. The self is who we think we are, based on the stories we tell ourselves. We develop, nurture, protect, and prop up our identity with stories about ourselves and the world around us. A common question in Buddhism, and many religions and philosophies is, does the self exist? And the Buddhist answer is yes, it does, but not in the way we think or act. The self is not a permanent solid I or me. It is it is a constantly changing sense of who we think we are from moment to moment and from day to day. It is not a fixed, concrete entity. Many religions believe in a soul, a permanent, eternal, unchanging, underlying essence. Buddhism does not. In fact, the Buddha himself never said one way or the other that the self exists or doesn't exist. When the Buddha started teaching the concept of karma, he viewed ideas of self and not self as types of karma. He defined the creation and support of our sense of self, the habitual telling of stories about ourselves, as an action. An action creates karma. Being generous is an action that creates karma. Being mean or cruel creates karma. Likewise, we develop our identity or sense of how we develop our identity or sense of self is karma that we create as well. And the question becomes, under what circumstances does the action of developing yourself create positive or negative karma? So, hey, everybody who's joined. I'm just reading from the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. It's a guide to living and dying, written by Lama, Lhanang, Rinpoche, and Mordy, Levine. And I'm reading chapter 2. So welcome. So ourselves and our karma. So here are 3 examples that illustrate how karma is created based on how we view and support ourselves. So sense of self with family. So John views himself as a good father and a good husband. He is convinced that he is and takes great pride in himself. The stories he tells himself about being a good father or husband support that aspect of his self-identity. But his wife and son do not see him as a good father or a good husband after he yells at them. This creates an ongoing conflict in the family, with all family members holding on to their views strongly. And so the more John grasps and holds on to the concept that he is a good father or husband, the more attached he is to this aspect of his sense of self, and the more negative karma he creates. So if John is open-minded about who he thinks he is and is able to consider other perspectives in this regard, he creates positive karma. So for example, maybe he can be a better father. Maybe he has had too narrow of a view of himself in this regard. Maybe he just has a different view of himself than others, in which case, what makes his view right and someone else's view wrong? So welcome everyone. I'm just reading chapter 2. So our sense of self in our career. So Sumi has her dream job as a surgeon in a hospital where she has worked for 10 years. She loves it. It is part of her being. The strong view of herself is intertwined with her career as a surgeon. In the medical field, many doctors or nurses see their occupation as a calling. One day, Sumi visited a patient after surgery and was very abrupt in her manner. Her patient was very upset and told others that Sumi was a horrible physician. Sumi was extremely upset and angry, and her patient's views was in direct conflict with the strong beliefs Sumi had of herself and her identity. So if Sumi is open to the possibility that she was not the best physician, she could have been at that moment. She is creating positive karma. If Sumi is absolutely 100% sure that everything she did was perfect and leaves no room for improvement, that would create negative karma. So the grasping to support a strong case of self-identity creates negative karma. Considering alternative views of the self loosens the grasping of self-identity and creates positive karma. So we can all be open to all possibilities and all opinions of ourselves without taking offense. We can be free to change our own opinion of ourselves and as we gather more information. We can have opinions of ourselves and others, of course, but we don't want to hold on too tightly to them because we would be factualizing something illusory and subject to change. So holding on tightly to who we think we are only sets us up for failure and disappointment, especially when we are faced with another differing opinion. So if you're joining, I'm just reading from the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. It's a guide to living and dying. It's Lama, Lhanang, Rinpoche, and Mordy, Levine. And after that, I'm going to pull a card from the Spirit Animal Oracle. So welcome. Good to see everyone. All right. So sense of self in social settings. So Josie is... Wait, I think it's Jose. So Jose is nervous in social environments and it causes him anxiety. Jose tells himself stories, true or false, over and over again about how he thinks he is or should be in social environments. So the action of creating these stories supports his view of himself. The more Jose believes the self-dialogue of I am a shy, private person that doesn't do well around people, the more he is grasping onto his sense of self. The more Jose grasps, the more resistance arises when it is time to go or avoid social engagements. So this is an example of negative karma being created. And the degree of conflict Jose feels, or the strength of his reaction to what happens around him, is a reflection of how strong his sense of self is. So Jose doesn't like this about himself and decides to change his life. He starts to attend small gatherings of only 2 or 3 people. He vows to speak more in one-on-one conversations, and he seeks help with a professional to overcome his fear. Regardless of his success, all of these sincere efforts create good karma. So if you're just joining, I'm just reading chapter 2 of the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. It's a guide to living and dying. It's written by Lama Lhanang Rinpoche and Mordy, Levine. Glad you can all be here. And so let's see here. So sense of self when dealing with fear. So Mari is afraid of heights, but continues to work on reducing that fear. By doing so, Mari weakens her sense of self and moves away from identifying herself as someone who is afraid. She starts on her own by looking out a window on the second floor of her work environment. And then a week later, she opens the window to see what is outside. She works with a friend to walk in and then out of an elevator. As she improves in these micro steps, she gains confidence. She still is afraid, but she sees what she's able to achieve on her own. She seeks professional help to continue to work on reducing or overcoming this fear. And this is an example of creating positive karma. If Mari didn't work on that fear, or if she let it continue to worsen, that would strengthen her identity in this regard. So this is an example of creating negative karma. Oh, awesome. I see you, Brad. There we go. I'm going to bring you on. I'm glad I noticed that. Hey, Brad, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great.
I'm just living life. That's what I mean. You know what? I'm going live in like 20, 30 minutes. That's why I was like, you know what? I feel like listening to my best friend.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
so that's
glad.
what I mean. I'm just going to be walking around the kitchen. I can hear you. Oh, here, let me turn off the music. One second. Let me. Hey, Google.
Yeah, for sure. I was just reading. I'm just reading. The Tibetan Book of the Dead there for beginners. I remember I started chapter 1 yesterday.
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. Of course.
Yeah.
That's why I come back.
So I'll just continue, and then after I'll pull the card, and if there's anything you want to add, you're welcome to jump in. Okay.
I would love to. That's what I mean. I'm going to be listening the whole time. I'll be sitting right here.
Awesome, brother. Okay. So where was I with the?
We were yesterday talking about. Oh God, we spoke about so many things, but you know me and my brain memory.
What I'll do is I'll just start reading from the sense of self when dealing with fear.
Okay.
So these are little stories of, how we can kind of deal with our self-identity, okay? So
yeah, exactly.
So Mari is afraid of heights, but continues to work on reducing that fear. By doing so, Mari weakens her sense of self and moves away from identifying herself as someone who is afraid. She starts on her own by looking out a window on the second floor of her work environment. Then a week later, she opens the window to see what's outside. She works with a friend to walk in and then out of an elevator. As she improves in these micro steps, she gains confidence. She still is afraid, but she sees what she's able to achieve on her own. She seeks professional help to continue to work on reducing or overcoming this fear, and this is an example of creating positive karma. If Mari didn't work on that fear, or if she let it continue to worsen, what would strengthen her identity in this regard? This is an example of creating negative karma. And of course, this aspect of Mari's self-identity is formed and would strengthen by the myriad of stories that she is used to telling herself about this fear. Now those stories are weaker, less true, and are not such a concrete part of her self-identity. That's pretty cool, eh? Any thoughts on that, Brad?
That's an interesting story. That starts off so just. No, you know what? That's what I mean. It just made me smile listening to it. It's just because it's the calming voice, right?
It's about the story we tell ourselves, right? It's about how we can calm ourselves by being more positive. That's awesome.
Well, that's what I mean. This was the exact testing I went through at the hospital. I can't remember how you started off the conversation. I can remember how you ended it, but I remember it was just positive the whole entire conversation.
Well, but
So
that's the beauty of it, because that's
exactly.
in this practice we're intending to have more of a positive energy. It's not about ignoring or denying what
Thank you for
else is
understanding
happening.
that.
It's just about practicing,
That's
right?
what they did at the hospital. Is that they would say that exactly what you just said, and they would be like, "Okay, repeat word for word what I said." And it wasn't my intention that I forgot, but it
Yeah,
made
no,
me
no.
feel stupid, right? And I was like, I feel like an absolute dumbass. But
Yeah,
no, like it was my brain, right? It was epilepsy. So that's yeah. When my dad was picking me up and everything, right? I was like, oh, like I don't feel so good, but it wasn't. It was my brain. It was epilepsy.
that's
That's
right.
exactly
So, and
right.
that's what we share. So what we share is that, like, I have what's called a moral brain injury, or like, because I also live with PTSD, and then things
Yep,
like
exactly.
ADHD.
And
So
I'm so here, so I'm just about to have a sneeze.
that's fine, but you see, I understand that you're high energy and that you need help sitting down and sitting still. So that's why you're invited here, my friend, because this is how we get to help each other, right? So, welcome to everybody who's here, and I'm gonna continue to read. We got a little bit left to go, and then I'm gonna pull a card and see what the animal
Yeah, I
oracle
want to see the
says.
card.
So, working with our sense of self, how we view and strengthen or weaken our sense of self creates karma. We can measure our degree of grasping when we look at how strong our tendencies and habits are.
Oh, sorry, I got a new.
Oh,
I
that's
got a
pretty
level 3
cool.
with you there.
Um, and then, so we can measure how strong these habits are by how much internal resistance we feel when something happens that doesn't fit our view of ourself. Look at how we react to what happens to us or around us. A strong reaction to support our sense of self creates negative karma. Look at the triggers that create a negative state of mind. A strong reaction to those triggers is indicative of the increased attachment to our self identity. The stronger we support our self identity, the greater the negative karma. So the good news is, since we create ourself and our habits, we can also control them.
See, and that's
Isn't
exactly
isn't that mind blowing, dude? That's what we practice, and that's what we
like
do when
every
we are in
single day.
recovery.
Yes, exactly. And that's what every day is recovery, right?
That's right, and we're all
Every moment of
recovering
life
from
is
something,
recovery. And
huh?
that's like growing in the opportunity of everything right now. That's what I mean. You know what? I'm about to take a shower and go live. So that's I would love it if you pulled the card. I want to see what the card is today.
Oh, you want me to jump ahead to the card? Well,
I want to know what it
just
says today. I'm about to go live. So I'm going to
just
take a quick shower.
just because it's you, Brad.
Yeah.
Do you wanna go and grab a shower and then come back, and I'll finish the reading the chapter and pull the card
Yes.
before you
Yeah,
go?
you know what? Exactly. I'll be back then.
All right, dude.
All right.
We'll pull the card as soon as you get back.
All right, sweet.
All right. See how I kind of tricked my friend into letting me finish my chapter, but I mean that with love. I know he'll come back. So all right. So there's that. Then there's ourselves and our karma. So we return to the question: what gets reborn? What is reborn is our consciousness that contains our karmic impressions or our ingrained habits. The karmic seed we create are like impressions in our consciousness, a type of memory. Our consciousness contains our sense of self. It is a type of memory or impression that continues on after we die. Here are some common situations when we grasp and tell ourselves stories to support our identity, which creates karma. So, how much we judge ourselves or hold on to our perspective determines whether the karma we create is negative or positive. So, fear of heights, attachment to money, grasping at fame, self importance, aversion to social engagements, fear of failure, or fear of intimacy. I could like just list those on my dating app profile. But how we grasp or not in these situations creates impressions that get strengthened, or negative karma, or weakened, which is positive karma, in our consciousness. So for every fear or every fact we know about ourselves, there is a way to see that it is not, or to see that it is just not true. To quote Mark Twain, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. That's pretty cool. Here are some examples of antidotes in the form of small steps for how one might reduce their attachment to these views of themselves. Okay, so attachment to money. Donate small amounts to charity that you would like to support. Give any amount of money to a person experiencing homelessness. Grasping at fame, self-importance. So volunteer at a shelter for unhoused people, or for animals, or at a hospital, or with any group less fortunate than you. Fear of failure. Find an activity you like to do and don't keep score. Set a goal of just doing it without an end goal in mind. So just by doing the activity, you have achieved your goal. Over time, you learn to appreciate the activity and not the end result. And then these micro steps may not be easy. They may be difficult, in fact. We're breaking down and stripping away the views that we have had of ourselves our whole life. But it is worthwhile and a noble effort. There is no one right answer for how we begin to relax our views of ourselves. But starting anywhere, starting now and starting in small doses, are always good places to begin. And of course, professional help can always be supportive. The consciousness containing these impressions is what continues after our body and our brain die, and eventually is reborn in a new body. So while we live, reducing our fears gives us freedom and confidence. And so let's see here, freedom and confidence, that our consciousness is not filled with the karmic seeds of our fears or anxieties. So we have created beneficial habits. We're open-minded. We know the world is ever-changing, impermanent, and illusory, and not something to solidify. We are open to seeing ourselves through many different lenses, and we learn to live with that open-mindedness. We are less likely to feel afraid or anxious. We can work with or deal with what comes our way with greater patience and even joy. So hey, Canada deserves better. I was just reading, and I just finished chapter 2 of this book. It's called The Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners. It's a guide to living and dying. It was written by Lama Lhanang Rinpoche, who's a teacher of Vajrayana Buddhism, born in Tibet. He lives in San Diego. And Mordy Levine, who's the president of the Yigma Lingpa Center. And he's delivered meditation to over 250,000 people. And this is a book I got from the library. And then as a practice, I just read a chapter a day. So welcome. And I wonder if Brad's going to come back. If you were here earlier, or if you've not met Brad, he's Brad Clark, and he He's in the process of, he's getting ready for a brain surgery. He's currently living with epilepsy, and he's been having a pretty amazing journey on TikTok, basically building a support network for himself of people and just people with lived experience. It's exciting to see him connect with people, connecting with people that have like some experience around epilepsy, and so that's pretty cool. Now, he wanted to know this card. I was hoping he would get back. I'm gonna keep an eye out. I'm gonna shuffle. This is kind of for him. I noticed earlier, it's pretty cool. What I love about the TikTok is it shows me all the folks. MJ sharing, it's not the action, it's our reaction. Absolutely love, love, love it. But it shows me all the folks who, even if they were just here for a second, right? They like pop in and pop out. So that's all good energy as far as I'm concerned. But one person I saw pop up in particular. Yeah. So at one point, when we're on social media, we don't always have control over who follows us, right? On every platform, there of course are tools. We can try to block, we can try to limit, we can try to do whatever we want to do, but there's always people when you're online, and whether it be like you might be brand new, or you might be like me and you've been online since the late 1900s, and very vocal and very much about community building and community support. But anyway, there's one person that had joined the live who, I would just classify as someone who just seems to need a lot of attention. And it's always, it's always confusing over the years of how some people bring their energy when they don't need to, right? It makes them maybe feel more powerful. I know in some cases it is a bad habit. That's what I loved about the chapter today, is sort of about how the things that we do can, essentially result in karma. That was yesterday's practice. How we live is how we die. So that's unfortunate, but it is what it is. I'm also of the mindset that, I have what's in control. Like, I can control what is in my control. And I wouldn't want to control someone else. I wouldn't want to take away from somebody's autonomy, right? Everything that I'm about is about all of us sharing, all of us having access. So I read chapter 2 of the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners, and I don't think I can. Could try to tag Brad, but you know what? I'm gonna shuffle. Let's give him. It's 39. I'm gonna shuffle and just kind of do some breathing exercises, but let's give it till 41. And if Brad doesn't pop back, then we'll pull it in his honor, and I'll share the info with him because he's getting ready to go live himself. Now I might even pop on his live and pull a card for him, because this again, so this is the Collette Baron-Reid guidebook. It's called the Spirit of the Animal Oracle. It says, the spirits residing in the natural world have much to share, and the secrets of their forgotten language are now available to you through the Spirit Animal Oracle. They urge us to reclaim our essential truth that we are one in spirit, connected to every living thing on this earth in a unified consciousness. So with the draw of a card, you can share in the wisdom and better navigate your life, move beyond the obstacles of your perceived limitations, and tune in to your infinite potential, etc., etc. And so Collette Baron-Reid, like, she's got her own talk show and she's done a whole bunch of books and stuff. She's available everywhere. All right. So we read from the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners, Chapter 2. And now I'm going to pull a card and see if it ties in with the... There we go. I feel like this is the card. All right. I'll show you first. What is that? Panther Spirit. And reclaim your power. So that's the animal. Reclaim your power. That's a pretty cool little message. So I'm going to have to find a way to tuck it into my chin. 44. All right. So with this, so we just kind of pulled a card, and awesome. Welcome back, MJ. So I pulled the Panther Spirit. Maybe I can just hold it up. Can I do two things at once? So Panther Spirit, reclaim your power. The Oracle message. So it takes courage to face challenges. And right now, Panther Spirit is here to say that you are braver than you think. Now is the time to take a risk and step into a different aspect of your being. Speak as you have never spoken before. Act as you have always dreamed you might have the courage to act. Love fearlessly and fully, and expect to feel the adrenaline rush. As you are initiated into a new, braver, bolder self. So Panther Spirit says the time for daydreaming about what you want to do is giving way to that first courageous act towards reclaiming your Panther Spirit and power. So your new identity may feel strange at first, but you have what it takes and your soul wants this. So be bold. And then there's a protection message with the card. So Panther saying, reclaim your power. So the protection message. Are you feeling shaky because you've made a bold move and have not yet seen confirmation that everything is going to work out? Or is fear holding you back? Are you afraid to act until all risk of failure has been removed? The moment when there is no risk whatsoever will never come. So follow the urging of your Panther Spirit within and look your fear in the eye. Have you ever heard the famous line, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself"? Stare down your fear and it will retreat and make way for your courage to fill you head to toe. Perhaps you're afraid you can't trust the power that is rising in you, and you fear the qualities you will find within when you look deeply at why you resist the challenge before you. Every part of you, no matter how dark it may seem, has a light quality. So be bold and face it. Own the light and make peace with your shadow. So Spirit trusts you. So be brave and trust yourself. So that is the reading from the Panther Spirit from the Animal Oracle cards. And that pull or that card was to inspire the subject of chapter 2, which is from the book, the Tibetan Book of the Dead for Beginners, A Guide to Living and Dying by Lama Lhanang Rinpoche and Mordy Levine. And in chapter 2, the theme was what dies and what gets reborn. So, and the underlying topic there was about kind of the stories we tell ourselves, what that makes us, like our sense of self. One thing I'll mention just from my own, book of or box of tools that I use, but there's something, if you've ever heard of cognitive behavioral therapy skills or tools, there's something that's called catch, check, change. So the idea is that we can catch our thoughts. So we just sort of try to make note of what we're thinking, right? If we can write it down or we can capture it some way, video is a great way. But then we check it. So within our own research, within our own scope of practice, we go, okay, is this only true to me? Is it true to other people? Do other people, like, we start to check it. We do our own investigation and then change. And the change part, it doesn't have to be about right or wrong. It can be about, how do we want to articulate ourselves? How do we want to come across? The reason why this is important to me is because often people will catch us off guard, or they'll trigger us, or they'll poke the bear because they just like to do that, or whatever reason, right? And so it's like, well, what can we do with that? Like, if we can't stop it, what's within our power? And what's within our power is being who we are, and acknowledging that there's always going to be give or take, there's always going to be plus or negative, but the more we can stay grounded, the more we can be rooted in who we are, the more everybody and ourselves, the more we can go forward, in a peaceful way and with confidence. So that's, pretty much the gist of the gist. Now, I did all this in 49 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off with a thank you to everybody who tuned in, turned on, who will listen in. This is just a personal practice. I read the chapter, What Dies and What Gets Reborn. And may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings rejoice in the well-being of others, and may all beings live in peace. free from greed and hatred. Those are the 4 immeasurables. If you're interested, I have a couple of links to the chapter 1 reading yesterday. I'm gonna post this as well on the YouTubes and the this, that, and the other. And because it's under an hour, I think I'll be able to post I'll be able to post the full thing here. So if you want to hear the rest of the chapter, and I think there's 11 chapters altogether. And so my goal will be to come in and maybe do this as a daily practice. Pull a card. Yesterday's card was the Sandpiper, which was saying have a little bit of fun. And then and yesterday's message was about karma. So and the message being we live as we die. So the karma we create is the way we live. And what we're doing in our life is it's inevitable. All things have a full cycle. So the idea is how we conduct ourselves is really how we live our lives, and we naturally progress. So thanks everybody. I'm going to end it here, and stay connected. Looking forward to seeing you.